Let me start with a truth most women never hear, and once you hear it, you can't unhear it. A man's most intense pleasure doesn't come from what you do, it comes from how he feels while you're doing it. And the difference between a moment he enjoys and an experience he never forgets is rarely technique. It's presence, it's intention. It's the quiet confidence that says, I know exactly why I'm here with you. Most women are trying too hard to get it right, copying tips, overthinking moves, worrying if they're doing enough. But the irony is this: the moment you stop trying to impress him, he starts falling apart. Because men don't crave perfection, they crave being chosen. They crave the feeling that in this moment, they are the center of your desire, not rushed, not performed for, not distracted. Here's what no one tells you. When a man feels emotionally safe and deeply wanted at the same time, his body responds in ways that surprise even him. His breathing changes, his guard drops, his control fades. And suddenly, what could have been just physical becomes intensely personal. That's the kind of pleasure that stays with him long after the moment is over. And if you've ever wondered why some women seem to have this effortless effect on men, why men crave them, remember them, and emotionally bond to them, it's because those women understand one secret: intimacy is not about access to the body, it's about access to the mind. Stay with me, because in the next few moments, I'm going to break down the 5 key principles that turn ordinary intimacy into something powerful, connecting, and unforgettable without crossing lines, without forcing anything, and without losing yourself in the process. And by the end of this, you'll never approach intimacy the same way again. Here's the shift that changes everything. Intimacy stops being powerful the moment it feels rushed. Speed communicates anxiety. Slowness communicates certainty. And certainty is magnetic. When you slow down, you're not delaying pleasure, you're deepening it. You're telling his nervous system, there's nowhere else I need to be. This moment matters. That alone starts to unravel him. Most women think going slower means being hesitant or unsure, but real slowness is the opposite. It's leadership. It's choosing the pace instead of reacting to it. When you move with intention, every second feels deliberate. Every pause feels charged. And those pauses, that's where desire actually grows. Anticipation is not the absence of pleasure, it's the amplifier. Men live in a fast world. Pressure, performance, control. When intimacy mirrors that same urgency, his body stays guarded. But when you slow the rhythm, his system finally relaxes. His breathing changes. His muscles soften. His mind stops racing. And when that happens, sensation becomes deeper, not louder. Fuller, not frantic. This is how you take something physical and turn it into something immersive. Intentional slowness also sends a powerful emotional message. I'm not doing this because I feel I should. I'm doing this because I want to. Desire felt over time is far more intoxicating than desire rushed to a finish line. When he feels that you're savoring the moment, not racing through it, he feels chosen, not consumed. Chosen. And here's the part most people miss. Slowing down gives you control, not in a forceful way, but in a grounded, confident way. You're no longer reacting to his responses. You're guiding the experience. That leadership allows him to let go, because when someone else is calmly holding the pace, he doesn't need to manage anything. He can simply feel. This kind of intention is deeply feminine and deeply powerful. It's not about doing more. It's about doing less but with presence. When you're fully there, even silence becomes charged. Even stillness feels intimate. And that presence is what separates forgettable moments from ones that linger in his body long after. Slowing down also creates emotional safety. When nothing feels rushed, nothing feels transactional. He doesn't feel like he's being handled or moved through a sequence. He feels met, seen, experienced. And when a man feels emotionally safe and desired at the same time, his body responds more intensely than any technique could ever produce. So if you take nothing else from this point, remember this: intimacy isn't about how fast you can get somewhere, it's about how deeply you can stay. When you slow down with intention, you stop chasing reactions and start creating connection. And that connection is what turns desire into something explosive without you ever having to rush a single moment. And this is just the beginning, because once the pace is set, everything else becomes effortless. Here's a subtle truth that changes everything. Men don't respond most deeply to what looks impressive. They respond to what feels intentional. The moment intimacy starts to feel like a performance, something emotional shuts down. He may still enjoy the moment, but he's no longer fully present in it. When a man feels like he's being done to, instead of chosen, the experience stays surface level. What men crave often without realizing it is the feeling of being genuinely wanted, not accommodated, not entertained. Wanted. And there's a huge difference when your energy says, "I'm here because I desire you," instead of "I hope I'm doing this right." His body reacts in a completely different way. Desire that flows from choice is far more powerful than desire driven by obligation or expectation. This is why presence matters more than perfection. You don't need to be thinking about what comes next. You don't need to be checking yourself mentally. The most intoxicating thing you can offer is your attention. When you're mentally with him, not monitoring yourself, not rushing, not trying to impress, he feels it instantly. And that presence creates emotional intimacy, not just physical closeness. Men rarely feel truly chosen in life. They feel needed, relied on, expected. But chosen, that's rare. When intimacy carries that energy, when it feels like something you want, not something you're providing, it lands deep. It softens him. It lowers his guard. Because being wanted without pressure is one of the safest emotional spaces a man can be in. And here's the important part. This isn't about saying anything dramatic or doing anything theatrical. It's subtle. It's in your calm confidence, your unhurried energy, the way you stay relaxed instead of rushed. That ease communicates, "I'm enjoying this, I'm not trying to prove anything," and that's what allows him to stop performing too. When a man no longer feels like he has to impress, control, or manage the moment, his body naturally becomes more responsive. His mind stops racing. His awareness shifts inward. And that's where deeper sensation begins. Not because you did more, but because he felt safe enough to feel everything. There's also something incredibly attractive about a woman who isn't seeking validation in intimacy. When you're not looking for approval, reassurance, or reaction, your energy becomes grounded, magnetic. You're no longer asking, "Is this okay?" You're simply being. And that self-trust is what pulls him closer emotionally. So instead of thinking, "Am I doing this well?" ask yourself a better question: am I fully here? Because when intimacy is rooted in presence rather than performance, it becomes personal. It becomes connective. And that's what makes it unforgettable. When a man feels wanted instead of performed for, he doesn't just remember the moment, he remembers how he felt in your presence. And that feeling is what keeps him coming back, emotionally and physically, long after the moment has passed. And once this foundation is set, everything that follows becomes deeper, easier, and far more powerful. Here's something most women are never told, but once you understand it, everything changes. Men don't crave speed first, they crave anticipation. What actually overwhelms him isn't how fast you go, it's how intentionally slow you start. Control the rhythm, and you control his mind before you ever control his body. Think about this for a moment. When a man feels rushed, his body reacts, but when he feels teased, his entire nervous system lights up. Slow rhythm tells him, "I'm not trying to impress you. I know exactly what I'm doing," and confidence like that, it's intoxicating. This is where most women accidentally rush past the magic. They assume intensity equals speed, but the truth is, intensity is built in layers. When you slow down, especially at the beginning, you allow his anticipation to grow. His breathing changes, his focus sharpens, his body becomes hypersensitive to every single movement. And here's the emotional part most people miss. When you control the rhythm, he feels chosen, not used. He feels like this moment is intentional, like you're not just doing something to him, you're doing it with him. That emotional safety mixed with desire, that's what creates unforgettable experiences. Now, let's talk about rhythm in a way that's actually practical. Rhythm isn't about staying slow forever. It's about contrast. You begin slow, steady, unhurried. You let pauses exist. Yes, pauses. Those brief moments where you pull back just enough to make him feel the absence. That absence creates craving, and craving is far more powerful than constant stimulation. Then, when you do change pace even slightly, it feels explosive to him. Not because it's extreme, but because his body has been waiting for it. You're essentially training his nervous system to respond more intensely to less effort. That's mastery. And here's something important for you, especially as a woman watching this: slowness gives you control. When you're not rushing, you're not performing, you're leading, you're deciding the pace. You're deciding when to deepen the moment. That sense of leadership is deeply attractive, and men feel it immediately. There's also something incredibly seductive about calm confidence. When you move slowly, you signal certainty. You signal comfort in your own sensuality. You're not anxious. You're not questioning yourself. And that energy transfers directly to him. He relaxes, he opens, he becomes more responsive. And finally, this is crucial: slowing down keeps him present. Men disconnect when things feel mechanical or rushed, but when the rhythm is intentional, he stays grounded in the moment. His thoughts quiet, his awareness sharpens. And that's when pleasure becomes overwhelming rather than fleeting. So remember this: you don't need to do more, you need to do it slower, with purpose. Control the rhythm, and you won't just give him pleasure. You give him an experience his body remembers long after it's over. Here's the part that quietly changes everything. Confidence is not loud, flashy, or aggressive. Real confidence is calm. It's grounded. It's the feeling of being comfortable in your own desire without needing permission or validation. And that energy, more than any technique, is what a man responds to most deeply. When a woman is confident in intimacy, she's not asking, "Is this okay?" every second. She's not checking his reactions to measure her worth. She's present, relaxed, secure in herself. And that security creates a powerful psychological effect on a man. It tells him he doesn't need to perform either. He doesn't need to impress. He doesn't need to control the moment. He can let go. Most men spend their lives being on, leading, deciding, providing, managing outcomes. So when intimacy still feels like something he has to manage, something he has to guide or respond to, it keeps him mentally active. But when a woman's confidence gently takes the lead, his mind finally gets to rest. And when the mind relaxes, the body opens. This is why confidence is so seductive. It creates emotional safety. When you're comfortable with yourself, you send the message: nothing is at risk here. There's no pressure, no expectation, no need to rush toward a result. And in that space, sensation becomes deeper because it's not being chased, it's being allowed. Confidence also shows up in subtle ways. In the way you move without hesitation. In the way you don't apologize for your desire. In the way you stay connected to yourself instead of constantly seeking reassurance from him. That self-trust is magnetic because it says, "I'm not doing this to be chosen. I'm doing this because I choose you." And here's something powerful for women to hear. Confidence doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from accepting yourself exactly where you are. You don't need to feel perfect. You don't need to feel flawless. You just need to feel present. When you allow yourself to be fully there without judgment, you naturally become more attractive, because authenticity always beats performance. Men feel this immediately. They sense when a woman is trying versus when she's trusting herself. Trying creates tension, trust creates flow, and flow is where pleasure deepens. When you're confident, you're not rushing to an outcome. You're allowing the moment to unfold. And that patience is what intensifies everything. There's also a quiet power in not needing a reaction. When you're not scanning his face for feedback, your energy settles. And that grounded energy pulls him in. He becomes more responsive because he's not being asked to validate you. He's being invited to experience the moment with you. Confidence also allows intimacy to feel personal rather than scripted. It stops being about what's supposed to happen and becomes about what is happening. That authenticity creates a deeper emotional connection, and emotional connection is what transforms physical closeness into something unforgettable. So if you ever feel unsure, remember this: confidence isn't about knowing the right move. It's about trusting your presence. When you feel secure in yourself, everything you do carries more weight because it's coming from a place of intention, not insecurity. And when a man feels that calm certainty from you, he doesn't just feel pleasure, he feels safe, he feels desired, he feels connected. And that combination is what makes intimacy powerful, not just in the moment, but in memory. Once confidence enters the space, everything else follows naturally. This is the part almost no one talks about, but it's the part that decides everything. What stays with a man isn't just what happened during intimacy, it's how he felt after. The ending doesn't close the experience, it locks it in. And this is where emotional bonding is quietly created. Most people assume once the peak moment passes, the connection fades. But emotionally, the opposite is true. After vulnerability, a man's nervous system is open. His guard is down. And whatever he experiences in that window becomes attached to the memory of you. This is where presence matters more than passion. When you stay emotionally close, calm, relaxed, grounded, you communicate something powerful without saying a word. You're safe here. That sense of safety doesn't weaken attraction, it deepens it. Because when desire and safety exist together, the experience stops being just physical and starts becoming personal. Men don't often feel held emotionally. They're expected to be strong, composed, in control. So when intimacy ends with warmth instead of distance, it creates a contrast his body remembers. You're no longer just someone he shared pleasure with, you become someone his nervous system trusts. This doesn't require words. In fact, too much talking can pull him out of the moment. What matters is your energy, unhurried, comfortable, present. When you don't rush away, emotionally or physically, it tells him this moment wasn't transactional. It wasn't about an outcome. It was about connection. And connection is what creates attachment. There's also something deeply attractive about a woman who doesn't immediately seek reassurance afterward. When you don't ask, was that okay? Or did you like that? You're reinforcing confidence. You're saying, I trust myself. I trust this moment. And that self-trust makes him feel secure too. This is where memory formation happens. The body remembers how it felt when things slowed down again, when breathing steadied, when presence returned. That emotional landing becomes the final impression. And first and last impressions are what the brain holds onto most strongly. Think of it this way. If intimacy is music, the ending note determines whether it echoes or fades. A rushed ending cuts the resonance short. A grounded ending lets it linger. And here's the beautiful part: this presence benefits you too. You're not abandoning yourself once the moment is over. You're staying connected to your own body and emotions. That self-connection radiates outward. It creates calm. It creates depth. And depth is what makes intimacy meaningful rather than draining. When a man leaves an intimate moment feeling relaxed, valued, and emotional, safe, he doesn't just remember pleasure, he remembers peace. And peace combined with desire is incredibly addictive. That's what makes him think of you later. That's what makes him feel closer without fully knowing why. So remember this. Intimacy doesn't end when the action ends. It ends when the connection fades. If you stay present just a little longer emotionally, energetically, you transform a moment into a memory. And that memory becomes the reason. He doesn't just want intimacy again, he wants it with you. Before we wrap this up, I want you to take a breath and really let this land. Because what we talked about today was never about doing more. It was about being more present, more intentional, and more confident in your desire. When you slow down, when you lead with intention, when you make him feel chosen instead of performed for, when you control the rhythm, trust your confidence, and stay emotionally present, at the end you stop creating moments and start creating memories. This is the kind of intimacy that doesn't fade the moment it's over. It lingers. It settles into his body. It becomes something he associates with you. And that's powerful not because it's manipulative, but because it's real. It's rooted in connection, not performance. Presence, not pressure. And here's what I really want you to remember. You don't need to change who you are to be deeply desired. You don't need to copy anyone else's style or follow rigid rules. The most magnetic version of you is the one who is relaxed, grounded, and comfortable in her own skin. When you trust yourself, everything you do carries more impact. So let me ask you this, and I genuinely want to hear from you in the comments. Which of the 5 principles hit you the hardest? Was it slowing down, letting go of performance, controlling the rhythm, owning your confidence, or understanding how powerful the ending really is? Your answer might help another woman watching feel less alone in her experience. If this video helped you see intimacy in a new way, make sure you like it so more women can find this message. And if you want deeper conversations about attraction, connection, and emotional confidence, subscribe, because we go even further here. Remember, intimacy isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. And when you master that, you become unforgettable.